Every economics professor teaches you the same lesson. Currency stability requires modern central banks, complex algorithms, and teams of PhD economists monitoring global markets around the clock. They tell you ancient empires were primitive. Their money was unstable. Their economies were chaotic. This is a lie. 14 centuries ago, a single empire maintained the same gold coin at the same weight and the same purity for 700 consecutive years. No inflation spirals, no currency crises, no purchasing power collapse. The Byzantine Solidus held its value from the reign of Constantine the Firm in 309 AD until the late 11th century. Merchants from Britain to China accepted it without question. Kings and caliphs hoarded it in their treasuries. It became the dollar of the medieval world. Your dollar has lost 97% of its purchasing power since 1913. The Byzantine Solidus lost 0% over 7 centuries. This was not luck. This was not accident. This was engineering. The Byzantines built a monetary system with structural protections against the single greatest threat to every currency in history, the government itself. They understood a principle your central bankers have forgotten. The greatest danger to money is the institution responsible for creating it. So they designed a system of bottlenecks, legal penalties, and institutional separations to make debasement nearly impossible. They created gatekeepers with no incentive to cheat. They established infrastructure for purity verification across thousands of miles. They imposed capital punishment for monetary crimes. They removed the levers of currency manipulation from the hands of emperors facing short-term political pressure. The machinery they built lasted longer than the Roman Republic, the Roman Empire, and every modern central bank combined. Welcome to Noob Historian. We follow the money, trace the power, and expose the history they never taught you in school. The coins in your pocket lose value every year. The numbers in your bank account buy less with each passing month. Your government prints trillions while telling you inflation is transitory. The Federal Reserve has existed for 111 years and has debased the dollar by 97% during its watch. The Byzantines solved this problem in the 4th century. They built a system where the money supply served the economy rather than the politicians. Their solution worked for 700 years. You are about to learn how they did it, and you're about to understand why modern monetary authorities will never teach you this history. The year was 309 AD. The Roman Empire was tearing itself apart. Rival emperors fought civil wars across 3 continents. The legions demanded payment in gold, and the treasury was empty. The old Roman currency system had collapsed into chaos. For the previous century, Roman emperors had done what every desperate government does. They debased their coins. They reduced the silver content. They clipped the edges. They mixed in cheaper metals. The denarius, once a reliable silver coin, had become a worthless token containing less than 5% silver. Prices had increased by over 1,000% in a single generation. Trade collapsed. Soldiers refused to accept military pay. The economy of the greatest empire in history was dying. Constantine I seized power through a series of brutal civil wars. He was a military commander, not an economist, but he understood one thing his predecessors had missed. An empire runs on trust, and trust runs on money. If soldiers do not believe their pay will hold value, they will not fight. If merchants do not believe prices will remain stable, they will not trade. If farmers do not believe they will receive fair payment, they will not grow food for the cities. Constantine needed a monetary reset. He needed a coin so reliable, so unchangeable, so trustworthy, it would restore faith in Roman institutions. He created the Solidus. The specifications were precise. Each coin contained 4.5 grams of pure gold. The fineness was 24 carats. 72 solidi were struck from 1 Roman pound of gold. These numbers never changed for the next 700 years. Constantine did not invent gold coinage. The Romans had used gold coins before. The Greeks had used them. The Persians had used them. But Constantine did something different. He built an entire institutional framework around his new coin. He made the Solidus the foundation of a monetary system designed to resist the pressures of future emperors. The first innovation was standardization across the entire empire. Every imperial mint used the same dies, the same weights, the same purity standards. A Solidus minted in Constantinople was identical to a Solidus minted in Alexandria or Antioch. Merchants did not need to test coins from different cities. They did not need to discount foreign money. The entire Mediterranean economy operated on a single monetary standard. The second innovation was legal. Constantine made the Solidus the official unit for tax collection throughout the empire. Every landowner, every merchant, every craftsman owed taxes in solidi. This created permanent demand for the coin. No matter what happened to other currencies, the Solidus would remain valuable because the government required it for tax payments. The third innovation was transparency. The weight and purity of the Solidus was public knowledge. Any merchant with a scale could verify a coin was genuine. Any goldsmith could test the metal content. The government did not ask citizens to trust its promises. It gave them the tools to verify its honesty. These three innovations transformed the solidus from a simple gold coin into a monetary institution. Within a generation, the solidus replaced silver and bronze as the primary unit of account across the eastern Mediterranean. Within a century, merchants from India to Scandinavia recognized and accepted Byzantine gold. Constantine died in 337 AD. His successors faced the same pressures every government faces. Wars required funding, bureaucracies demanded salaries, disasters required relief spending. Every emperor had incentives to debase the currency, to stretch the gold supply, to print their way out of fiscal crises. For 700 years, they did not do it. The solidus held. This was not because Byzantine emperors were more virtuous than modern central bankers. It was because the system Constantine built made debasement structurally difficult. The Byzantine approach to monetary stability began with a simple insight. Governments will always face pressure to debase currency. The solution is not to hope for virtuous leaders. The solution is to make debasement illegal, visible, and punishable by death. The Book of the Eparch, a 10th century Byzantine government manual, provides the clearest window into this system. This document regulated every aspect of commercial life in Constantinople. It specified rules for guild members, trade practices, and currency handling. The monetary provisions were extraordinary by modern standards. Money changers in Constantinople formed a tightly regulated guild called the Trapezitai. They required government licenses to operate. They underwent background checks, verifying their character and financial resources. They posted bonds, guaranteeing their honest conduct. They submitted to regular inspections by imperial officials. The Trapezitai served as the first line of defense against monetary fraud. Every significant commercial transaction in the capital passed through their hands. They tested coins for weight and purity. They rejected debased or clipped currency. They reported counterfeiters to imperial authorities. The penalties for money changers who passed bad coins included loss of property, physical mutilation, and execution. The guild structure created powerful incentives for self-policing. If one money changer passed counterfeit coins, the entire guild suffered reputational damage. If the guild failed to report a counterfeiter, all members faced collective punishment. The Trapezitai had every reason to expose bad actors before imperial inspectors found them. The same regulatory framework extended to goldsmiths, jewelers, and anyone else who handled precious metals. The Book of the Eparch specified where they could operate, what tools they could use, and how they must conduct business. Goldsmiths worked in designated areas under constant surveillance. They could not melt coins without official permission. They faced execution for producing unauthorized gold objects above a certain weight. These restrictions served a clear purpose. They created bottlenecks in the flow of precious metals. Every ounce of gold moving through the Byzantine economy passed through regulated checkpoints. Counterfeiters had nowhere to hide. Debased coins had nowhere to circulate. The penalties for monetary crimes reflected the Byzantine view of money as the foundation of the state. Counterfeiting was not theft. It was treason. The crime attacked the emperor's authority and the empire's stability. Punishments matched this severity. A counterfeiter caught with fake dies faced amputation of his hands. A mint worker who stole gold faced execution. A money changer who knowingly passed debased coins faced loss of his eyes. A goldsmith who melted solidity without permission faced confiscation of his entire workshop. These penalties sound brutal to modern ears, but they worked. Archaeological evidence from Byzantine coin hoards shows extraordinary consistency in weight and purity across centuries. The legal framework created something modern. Monetary systems lack credible commitment. When a Byzantine emperor promised the solidus would maintain its value, merchants believed him. Not because they trusted his virtue. They believed him because they understood the institutional constraints preventing debasement. The emperor would need to corrupt the entire guild system, bribe thousands of money changers, and somehow avoid detection by the elaborate surveillance apparatus. The cost of cheating exceeded the benefit. Modern central banks make promises about inflation targets and currency stability. No one believes them. The Federal Reserve has missed its inflation targets repeatedly. The European Central Bank has failed to maintain price stability. These institutions face no legal penalties for broken promises. No central banker has ever been imprisoned for debasement. No Treasury official has ever lost a hand for counterfeiting through quantitative easing. The Byzantines understood something modern economists have forgotten. Promises without penalties are worthless. The only credible commitment is one backed by serious consequences for violation. Constantine VII. Porphyrogenetos ruled the Byzantine Empire in the mid-10th century. He was more scholar than warrior, and he left behind extraordinary documentation of imperial administration. His work, De Ceremoniis, describes the rituals and procedures of the Byzantine court in exhaustive detail. Among these descriptions lies a window into Byzantine treasury operations. The imperial treasury in Constantinople was not a simple vault. It was a complex institution with multiple departments, specialized officials, and elaborate procedures for handling money. The Byzantines treated monetary administration as a technical discipline requiring professional expertise. The Sakalarios controlled the central treasury and oversaw all imperial finances. This official reported directly to the emperor but held tenure independent of political favor. The position required specialized training and demonstrated competence. A Sakalarios who mismanaged the treasury faced disgrace and exile. A Sakalarios who maintained stability earned lasting prestige. Below the Sakalarios worked a hierarchy of treasury officials. Chartularioi kept detailed written records of all income and expenditure. Comus tes Lamius supervised the imperial mints. The zygostates verified coin weights using standardized scales certified by the treasury. Each official had defined responsibilities and faced personal liability for failures within their domain. The minting process itself reflected this institutional discipline. Byzantine mints operated under direct imperial supervision with multiple layers of oversight. The Comes tes Lamius received gold bullion by weight, not by value. He recorded the amount received. He supervised the refining and alloying process. He oversaw the striking of coins. He verified the number of coins produced matched the gold input. He reported any discrepancies to the Sakalarios. Mint workers operated under constant surveillance. They could not leave the premises with metal on their persons. They underwent searches at the end of each shift. Their tools were counted and inspected daily. Any missing equipment triggered immediate investigation. The coins themselves bore marks identifying which mint, which official, and which die produced them. If debased coins entered circulation, inspectors could trace them back to their source. The responsible officials faced the full weight of Byzantine law. This traceability system created personal accountability throughout the monetary apparatus. No official could hide behind institutional anonymity. Every coin carried the signature of the people who made it. Every debasement would eventually identify its perpetrators. De Ceremonis also describes the elaborate procedures for imperial gift-giving. The emperor regularly distributed gold coins to courtiers, foreign ambassadors, and military officers. These ceremonies followed strict protocols specifying exact amounts for each rank and occasion. The procedures served multiple purposes. First, they demonstrated imperial wealth and generosity. An emperor who distributed pure gold solidus reinforced confidence in the currency. Recipients could weigh and test the coins, verifying Byzantine commitment to monetary standards. Second, the ceremonies created paper trails. Treasury officials recorded every distribution. Auditors could verify totals against mint production. Unexplained discrepancies triggered investigations. Third, the public nature of these distributions spread verified coins throughout the economy. Courtiers spent their imperial gifts. Ambassadors carried them home. Soldiers used them in markets across the empire. Each transaction reinforced trust in Byzantine gold. The treasury machinery extended beyond Constantinople. Provincial officials collected taxes in solidi and remitted them to the capital. Tax receipts specified exact amounts by weight. Central auditors compared provincial submissions against expected revenues. Shortfalls required explanation. Persistent underperformance led to investigations and replacements. This administrative infrastructure served the fundamental purpose of the Byzantine monetary system. It removed monetary policy from ad hoc imperial decision-making and embedded it in institutional processes. An emperor who wanted to debase the currency would need to corrupt or replace the entire treasury hierarchy. The machinery was designed to resist the man at the top. Modern central banks lack equivalent protections. The Federal Reserve Chairman serves at the pleasure of the president. Treasury secretaries change with each administration. No institutional memory constrains policy shifts. No legal penalties punish debasement. The machinery serves the politicians rather than constraining them. In 1908, archaeologists excavating a Viking burial site in Sweden found a small leather pouch containing gold coins. The coins were Byzantine solidi, minted in Constantinople centuries earlier. They had traveled from the eastern Mediterranean, through Russian rivers across the Baltic, and into Scandinavian graves as prestige objects worthy of accompanying the dead into the afterlife. This discovery was not unusual. Byzantine coins appear in archaeological sites from Britain to Sri Lanka, from Ethiopia to China. The solidus was not merely a Byzantine currency. It became the international monetary standard of the medieval world. Arab merchants called it the bezant and preferred it over their own dinars for large transactions. Indian traders accepted it alongside local currencies. Chinese records mentioned Byzantine gold coins arriving through Central Asian trade routes. The solidus achieved something no other medieval currency accomplished: universal acceptance across religious, cultural, and political boundaries. This international status was not accidental. It resulted directly from the stability the Byzantines engineered into their monetary system. Consider the position of a medieval merchant conducting long-distance trade. He buys goods in Constantinople and ships them to Baghdad. The journey takes months. When he arrives, he needs currency the local merchants will accept. He faces a problem modern travelers know well: exchange risk. If he carries Byzantine bronze coins, Baghdad merchants might refuse them or demand heavy discounts. If he carries silver, he must worry about varying purity standards between different minting authorities. But if he carries solidi, he faces neither problem. Every merchant in the known world recognized Byzantine gold. Every goldsmith could verify its purity. Every money changer knew its exact weight. The solidus became what economists call a vehicle currency. Traders used it to conduct transactions between third parties. A Persian buying Indian spices would pay in Byzantine gold. A Chinese merchant selling silk to Arabs would quote prices in bezants. The solidus was the dollar of its age, the universal medium for international settlement. Archaeological coin hoards confirm this pattern. Syrian hoards from the 6th and 7th centuries contain mixed collections of Byzantine, Persian, and Arab coins. But the Byzantine coins consistently show uniform weight and purity, while Persian and Arab issues vary considerably. Merchants hoarded Byzantine gold because they trusted its stability. British hoards tell a similar story. Byzantine solidi appear in Anglo-Saxon England despite having no direct political connection to Constantinople. These coins arrived through trade networks spanning thousands of miles. English merchants valued Byzantine gold because it maintained purchasing power across time and space. The international status of the solidus created a virtuous cycle reinforcing Byzantine monetary stability. Foreign demand for Byzantine currency gave the empire enormous economic leverage. Constantinople became the financial center of the medieval world. Trade routes converged on the Bosphorus. Wealth concentrated in Byzantine hands. This concentration of financial power gave the empire resources to maintain its military, diplomatic, and administrative apparatus. The currency funded the state, and the state maintained the currency. Each reinforced the other. The Byzantines understood the strategic value of monetary credibility. They exploited it systematically in foreign policy. Imperial diplomats distributed solidi to barbarian chiefs, Arab emirs, and Slavic princes. These payments bought alliances, secured borders, and spread Byzantine influence. They worked because recipients valued the gold. A gift of debased coins would have insulted foreign rulers and undermined diplomatic objectives. The empire's enemies understood this dynamic and attempted to counterfeit Byzantine currency. Persian mints occasionally produced imitation solidi. Arab rulers struck dinars matching Byzantine weight standards. None of these competitors achieved lasting success. The Byzantine quality control system detected counterfeits and expelled them from circulation. The empire's reputation for monetary integrity outlasted every challenger. This international monetary hegemony lasted until the 11th century. When the Byzantines finally debased their currency, the consequences extended far beyond Constantinople. Trade patterns shifted, financial networks restructured. The bezant lost its special status and became merely another fluctuating currency. Modern economists debate the sources of dollar hegemony. They cite American military power, deep financial markets, and network effects. They rarely mention the most important factor: historical trust. The dollar replaced the British pound as the global reserve currency because traders believed in American institutional stability. That trust took decades to build and now erodes as inflation persists and debt accumulates. The Byzantines built their monetary hegemony on 7 centuries of demonstrated reliability. They lost it within decades of abandoning their standards. The lesson is clear. International currency status is earned through consistency and lost through debasement. Every government in history has faced moments of extreme fiscal pressure. Wars threaten survival. Disasters demand relief. Political crises require expensive solutions. These moments test monetary systems. Most fail. The Byzantine Empire faced repeated existential threats during its 7 centuries of monetary stability. Arab armies besieged Constantinople itself in 674 and again in 717. Bulgars invaded from the north. Persians attacked from the east. Plagues killed millions. Earthquakes destroyed cities. Civil wars tore the empire apart. Through all of these crises, the solidus maintained its weight and purity. The Arab sieges provide an instructive example. In 674, an Arab fleet appeared in the Sea of Marmara and blockaded Constantinople. The siege lasted 4 years. The city's economy collapsed. Trade stopped. Food supplies dwindled. The treasury emptied as the government purchased supplies at any price and paid soldiers to man the walls. Emperor Constantine IV faced a choice every wartime leader confronts. He could maintain monetary standards and risk losing the war, or he could debase the currency, stretch existing gold supplies, and fund the defense. Every Roman emperor before Constantine I had chosen debasement. Every medieval European king would choose debasement. Constantine IV maintained the solidus. The decision was not based on economic principle. It was based on strategic calculation. The Byzantines understood something their contemporaries missed. Currency debasement is a one-way door. Once merchants lose faith in a coin, restoring confidence takes generations. The short-term relief from debasement creates long-term damage exceeding any immediate benefit. Constantine IV found other solutions. He imposed emergency taxes on the wealthy. He requisitioned church plate and melted it into coin. He negotiated loans from provincial governors. He sold government monopolies to private operators. He squeezed every possible revenue source before touching the currency. The Arabs eventually withdrew. Byzantine naval technology, specifically the incendiary weapon called Greek fire, destroyed their fleet. The empire survived with its monetary credibility intact. The same pattern repeated in subsequent crises. When Justinian II faced fiscal shortfalls in the late 7th century, they confiscated monastery wealth rather than reducing coin purity. When Basil II fought 50 years of wars against Bulgars and Arabs, he built a massive treasury surplus rather than borrowing against monetary integrity. These decisions reflected the institutional constraints described in previous chapters. The treasury machinery made debasement difficult to execute. The legal framework made it personally dangerous. The guild system made it hard to hide. An emperor determined to debase could probably overcome these obstacles, but the effort required would exceed the benefit. The Byzantines also understood the political economy of monetary stability. The classes who benefited most from stable currency wielded enormous power in Constantinople. The merchant guilds depended on reliable money for long-distance trade. The bureaucracy received salaries in solidi and wanted their purchasing power maintained. The church held vast wealth in gold and opposed any measure reducing its value. These interest groups influenced imperial policy through formal and informal channels. The guilds controlled access to essential goods. The bureaucracy implemented government decisions. The church commanded spiritual authority and popular loyalty. An emperor who debased currency would face opposition from the most organized sectors of Byzantine society. The contrasting example of Western Europe demonstrates what happened when these structural protections did not exist. Carolingian silver coins debased steadily from the 9th century onward. English currency went through repeated debasements and recoinage. French kings debased so aggressively that merchants switched to foreign currencies for large transactions. Western European monarchies lacked the institutional infrastructure constraining Byzantine emperors. They had no equivalent to the Trapeziti guilds verifying currency purity. They had no tradition of legal penalties for monetary crimes. They had no professional treasury bureaucracy with institutional memory and continuity. When fiscal pressures mounted, Western kings took the easy path of debasement. The Byzantine resistance to debasement was not inevitable. It was constructed through deliberate institutional design. The founding genius of the Solidus system lay not in the coin itself, but in the structures surrounding it. These structures aligned incentives, created accountability, and raised the cost of cheating beyond any immediate benefit. The story of the Solidus does not end happily. In 1034, Emperor Romanos III Argyros reduced the purity of the Byzantine gold coin for the first time in 7 centuries. The reduction was small, barely detectable, but it broke the seal. His successors continued the process. By 1080, the Byzantine gold coin contained less than 10% gold. The solidus had become a debased token indistinguishable from the currencies the Byzantines had always scorned. The 7th century miracle was over. The debasement coincided with Byzantine military and political decline. The empire lost Anatolia to the Seljuk Turks after the disaster at Manzikert in 1071. Civil wars consumed the aristocracy. Provincial elites seized local power. The centralized administrative apparatus collapsed. Historians debate whether monetary debasement caused the political decline or resulted from it. The answer is probably both. The structural protections maintaining the solidus depended on functioning institutions. As those institutions weakened, the constraints on debasement loosened, and as debasement proceeded, it undermined the economic foundations supporting those institutions. The guild system of Constantinople deteriorated during the 11th century. The Trapeziti lost their monopoly on currency exchange. Unlicensed money changers operated openly. The quality control network broke down. The treasury bureaucracy fragmented. Provincial officials stopped remitting revenues to Constantinople. The central government lost the ability to monitor mint operations. The paper trails documenting coin production disappeared. The legal penalties for monetary crimes became unenforceable. Local magnates protected counterfeiters. Imperial courts lacked jurisdiction in rebellious provinces. The threat of punishment lost credibility. With these constraints removed, emperors facing fiscal pressure did what every unconstrained ruler does. They debased. Each debasement made the next one easier. Each reduction in purity reduced the political cost of further reduction. The race to the bottom proceeded with accelerating speed. The consequences matched Byzantine fears. Trade patterns shifted away from Constantinople. Merchants demanded payment in Arab dinars or Venetian gold rather than debased Byzantine coins. The empire lost its position as the financial center of the medieval world. Resources that once flowed to Constantinople now flowed to Italian city-states. The military implications were equally severe. Mercenary soldiers demanded higher pay to compensate for debased currency. Provincial armies refused to fight for worthless wages. The empire could no longer project power or defend its borders. Within a century of the first debasement, the Byzantine Empire had shrunk to a rump state around Constantinople and a few scattered territories. The Fourth Crusade in 1204 captured the capital itself. The empire never fully recovered. The Byzantine monetary collapse offers a warning for modern economies. The structures maintaining currency stability are not permanent. They require constant maintenance, institutional commitment, and political will. Once broken, they are nearly impossible to rebuild. The Federal Reserve was established in 1913 with a mandate to maintain price stability. It failed almost immediately. The dollar lost value during World War I, stabilized briefly in the 1920s, and then collapsed during the Great Depression. Post-war inflation eroded purchasing power steadily. The 1970s brought double-digit inflation. Recent years have seen inflation rates not experienced in 4 decades. The dollar has lost 97% of its purchasing power since the Federal Reserve took control of American monetary policy. This is not a failure of knowledge. Modern economists understand inflation better than Byzantine Treasury officials. It is a failure of structure. The Federal Reserve lacks the institutional constraints that maintain the Solidus. No guild of money changers polices currency quality. No legal penalties threaten officials who debase. No traceability system identifies responsibility for inflation. No separation of monetary authority from political pressure protects long-term stability. Federal Reserve governors serve at the pleasure of the president. Their career incentives favor accommodating political demands. Inflation helps debtors, including the largest debtor of all, the federal government. The people controlling monetary policy benefit from debasement. The Byzantine system aligned incentives differently. Treasury officials faced personal penalties for debasement. Mint workers lost their hands for counterfeiting. Emperors who damaged the currency faced opposition from organized interest groups. The system was designed to resist the people at the top. Modern central banking is designed to serve the people at the top. The results are predictable. The Byzantine monetary miracle offers several lessons for contemporary policy. First, stability requires structural constraints, not promises. The Byzantines did not maintain the Solidus through good intentions. They maintained it through legal penalties, guild oversight, and treasury machinery creating accountability. Second, credibility compounds over time. The Solidus achieved international status because generations of Byzantine officials maintained standards. Each year of stability made the next year of stability more valuable. Modern currencies burn through this accumulated credibility in pursuit of short-term political objectives. Third, debasement is addictive. Once governments discover they can solve fiscal problems by reducing currency value, they repeat the behavior. The Byzantine example shows that even 7 centuries of restraint can collapse within decades once the seal breaks. Fourth, monetary stability supports broader institutional health. The Solidus funded Byzantine military power, diplomatic influence, and administrative capacity. When the currency failed, these systems failed with it. Modern governments depend on currency credibility for their ability to function. They undermine that credibility at their peril. You live in an economy built on currency debasement. Your savings lose value every year. Your wages buy less each month. Your government prints money to fund spending it cannot afford through honest taxation. The system is designed to extract wealth from you and transfer it to those who control the money supply. The Byzantines built a different system. They proved monetary stability is achievable. They demonstrated the institutional structures required to maintain it. They showed that 7 centuries of stable currency is possible when governments design systems to constrain their own worst impulses. Modern authorities have chosen not to learn this lesson. They benefit too much from the current arrangement. Inflation is a tax that requires no legislation. It transfers wealth from savers to borrowers, from workers to asset owners, from the politically weak to the politically connected. The Byzantine Solidus stands as proof that another way is possible. The question is whether anyone in power wants to pursue it. The answer, for now, is no. But the historical record remains, and the next time someone tells you stable currency is impossible, you will know they are lying. A single empire maintained the same gold coin at the same weight and the same purity for 700 years. The technology existed 14 centuries ago. The knowledge exists today, only the political will is missing. And that absence tells you everything you need to know about who benefits from the current system and who pays the price. You pay the price. Every day, in every transaction, with every dollar that buys less than it did the year before. The Byzantines solved this problem. Your government chooses not to. Remember that the next time someone explains why inflation is necessary, unavoidable, or good for the economy, they are telling you why it is good for them. They are not telling you why it is good for you, because it is not good for you, and it never was.